Welcome to this training video on how to approve hours. My name is Ryan Carrier and I sit on the VTHR help desk. In today's training, we're going to cover how to approve hours. So for our training objectives today, we're going to go over manager self-service, how to view and report time, make changes if needed, and then ultimately how to approve time. Once you get security from us, you'll have a new menu item in VTHR called Manager Self-Service. You'll have this on top of your own self-service account. This will simply allow you to do stuff as a supervisor, such as entering hours for somebody and also approving hours. So for example, if you needed to enter hours for an employee, you would do so through your own login. We wouldn't want you to take the employee ID number and password for an employee and log in as them to get the hours entered. We will give you security to access them from your login. We'll start off by simply showing you how to view what your employees have or have not entered, and this is separate from the approval process. We set up what we call time reporter groups, and this is simply a group of employees, and then we attach approvers to that group. So each employee is in one time reporter group, and multiple approvers could possibly approve that group. Your department will tell us the hierarchy of who you should have access to. You should see your direct reports, but possibly you might see other employees you're in a backup approver for. We want a little bit of redundancy for this, just in case one approver is out, somebody else could fill in for them. There are defaults to the current pay period. When you go in to view an employee's timesheet, it will always default to the new pay period. To get to where you can report time for an employee, we go to main menu, manager self-service, time management, and report time timesheet. And let me show that to you now. I am logged into a training environment. And this training environment's a little bit slower than our normal production environment. But to see what your employees have entered, click on main menu. And again, once you get security, you'll have this new menu item called manager self-service. So once you see this, then you know we've set up security for you. We go to time management, we click on report time, and then timesheet. There's different ways to find your employees. If you know the time reporting group, the employee ID number, or the last name, you can find your employees that way. The easiest way to search for your employees is just click on Get Employees. I'm going to search just on this time reporting group. I'm going to go ahead and click Get Employees. And in this circumstance, I'm logged in as Brian Reed. So in this time reporter group, there are 85 employees. So if I needed to get to an employee's timesheet, I simply click on their name. It will open up their timesheet. It will also open it up into the current pay period. This should look exactly like your own timesheet, meaning you can go back to other pay periods and see what has been done or entered in the past. I'm just going to jump forward. You can also use the date box as I'm showing you here. You can also easily get to other employees. Up in the upper right, there'll be a next or previous employee button. So now we're at Adam. Now we're at another Adam. This is how you can very quickly go to different employees. However, if your list is large of employees, it may not be useful to go through it this way. To get to back to that big list of employees, you first have to scroll to the bottom of the page. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see this on all the manager self-service pages in VTHR. Click on Return to Select Employee. This simply will bring you back to the big list of employees, allowing you to click on someone else. So here we'll just click on this employee. And that's how you can see what an employee has or has not entered. As you can see here, they have not entered any hours. If they have entered hours, you will see that they were entered in the boxes. And that's how you can see what your employees have entered. For reporting time, the employee is the primary responsibility for entering hours. Obviously, we understand their times or employees are not available, and we have department delegates in place to enter for employees. These are people in your business office. I believe for Northwest Correctional Facility, this is Tracy Honsinger. And so she's tasked to enter on behalf of employees. The reason we would prefer her to do it and not the direct supervisor is we simply want a separation of duties. We don't want the same person to enter and approve those same hours. And this is how we accomplish that, by having someone else enter it and then you approving it. Our system does allow you to still enter and approve the employee's same hours. And if the employee is not available and the delegate, you could enter for the employee and have one of the other approvers approve the hours. Again, we just want a separation of duties, who's entering and approving. If you do report time for an employee, please document the timesheet with a comment, and this is how you report their hours. First, you find them like we just did in the previous section: main menu, manager self-service, time management, report time, timesheet. I'm just going to report a single day's worth of hours. You're on their timesheet. It acts exactly like your own timesheet. So I'm just going to put in 8 hours of work for this employee. You could select any other information as needed. It stamps that you have entered the hours for the employee. So we know who entered the hours when. If you do enter hours for an employee, please just stick a comment on the timesheet. You don't have to write a book, just this one sentence, and you only have to write one sentence for multiple items. That way, if there's ever an audit done, it's very clear who entered the hours and why. And that's how you enter hours for an employee. We'll just do the same thing on the next day. We'll say they had some hours worked and 1 hour of overtime. And the overtime should be for compensatory time. I'll submit the hours and just stick a comment in. I've entered for 2 different days here, but you only need to enter 1 comment in. And that's how you report hours for an employee. And now we'll go right into our approval process. We'll start by showing you how time flows through, how to find employees who need approval, how to approve time, certain items we want you to look at when approving time through our checklist, correcting a timesheet if you find an error, and then expectation and guidelines. It all starts with time entry. Time has to be entered for an employee, either directly by the employee or someone else. Once that time is entered, it comes up for approval. If no changes need to occur to the timesheet, i.e. everything was good on the timesheet, it gets approved, and then it gets loaded and then eventually paid out by payroll. So if no time is entered, no hours will come up for approval and will not be loaded by payroll. Employees have to report hours in order to get paid. Our other case here is also if the employee has entered and it comes up for approval and you find issues with the timesheet, so you need to make a change to the timesheet, either you or the employee, that change goes back to time entry and it comes back up for approval. So any changes to a timesheet do require approval. So we will just pretend that these were both already approved. So if the employee changes the amount of hours, if they change the time reporting code, if they change the task profile, the cash comp, or the shift on an item that's already been approved, you have to approve that difference. The only time that is not the case is if the employee deletes the hours out, either by deleting the line or just completely removing the line itself and submitting, then you don't have to approve that complete removal. It stamps it that we know that they deleted it, but you just don't have to approve the complete removal of the item. And now we'll show you how to find employees who need approval. Again, this is tied to our time reporter groups, our group security. Again, each employee is in one time reporter group, and then we attach approvers to those different time reporter groups. So approvers could approve multiple time reporter groups. So again, you should see your direct reports, but possibly you might also see other employees you may be a backup approver for. People who need approval are people who have reported their time. If they have not reported hours, they will not come up for approval. Also, if they've reported time, but somebody else has approved the hours, they will not come up for your approval. And I'll show you how to spot both of those in just a minute. When you go to find people who need approval, it also defaults as well, and I'll show that to you in a second. And here's the navigation for this. We start back over at the home. I'll show you how to find people who need approval. We'll click on main menu, manager self-service, time management, and now we are going to approve time. We approve reported time. Again, same exact type of search box, lots of different ways to find employees. So if you know their last name, you can search just by last name. In this circumstance, I'm just going to search on this one-time reported group. The biggest difference here is it's going to show you all time that needs approval after a certain date. We change this date for you. Basically, once we get done confirming payroll, we'll update this box. In general, you should not have to change this date that much, if at all. So here I'm just going to click Get Employees. And so this time, there are 28 people who need approval. There was quite a few on the previous list. And so these are all people whose hours need approval. So now we're ready to approve hours. So to approve an employee's hours, you first find the employee, as we previously did. Then you'll actually click on their name, which we'll do in a second. And then we review all the elements in the Get timesheet. These are some basic items we'd like you to be on the lookout for, and I'll end up emailing these to you as well. All right, so making sure that you're approving for the correct pay period. If an employee forgets to enter their hours for a pay period and they go in and do it on the Sunday or the Monday following the pay period, it defaults to the new pay period. So if they forget to go back on their timesheet to the previous pay period, they're going to enter their hours in for that new pay period. So when you're approving hours, just make sure you're looking at the dates at the top, that it reflects the correct pay period. Make sure your employees have reported their standard hours. So if they're supposed to work 80 hours a pay period, 90, however many hours that they're putting in that amount of hours, that way they're getting paid correctly. And then making sure they're working, they're reporting their hours correctly against their work group. I'll provide you information more about this after. And then looking at some common time reporting codes. So if they've put in for overtime, making sure that they're authorized for that overtime in the first place. For example, employees just can't come in on the weekends on their day, or come in on their day off and do some cleaning and expect to get paid for it. The department needs to authorize overtime. If you've seen weird time reporting codes that you haven't seen before, go ahead and question it. So if you see something like state or jury duty, fire rescue, something strange, go ahead and question it and give us a call. I don't believe corrections flexes their hours, so you guys have pretty rigid schedules. And then making sure employees have put in for holidays. There's two sets of holiday codes. There's unscheduled or unscheduled holiday and just plain holiday. And let me tell you what both are used for. Unscheduled holiday is used if the employee's regular day off fell on the holiday. So if the holiday was on Friday and my normal schedule is having Friday and Saturday off, then I would use unscheduled holiday because it was an unscheduled day that I would have worked. If the employee's regular day off, if the employee would have normally worked the holiday, i.e. it's a regular day to work, then they would put in for holiday. Business offices want us to make sure employees are utilizing the correct funding sources. So making sure your employees are using the correct task profile to charge their hours to the right project or grant. Looking at the cash or comp box, specifically for overtime, to making sure that the employee is getting paid correctly for their overtime, whether it should be cash or compensatory time. Once payroll has processed for a pay period, we will not change the cash comp box after the fact. Shifts, making sure that your employees are utilizing the correct shifts. And then comments. We encourage employees to utilize comments to explain stuff on their timesheet. For example, weird coding, or some departments require a comment on all overtime to explain what the overtime was for. So just please utilize the comments, and I'll show that how you would do that in a second. So those are the basic things we want you to look at. And this is then how we will approve hours. So kind of glance over what you need to approve. You can also see what already has been approved or as well, and then you approve the timesheet. And this is how we approve hours. So first we find the employees, which we did in the previous section, and then you simply click on their name. So I'm going to click on Adam. So we will just pretend that we are in the new pay period, the one that started on 11/13. So, but in your case, just make sure that this top reflects the correct pay period, because the employee, again, on Sunday and Monday might enter their hours thinking they're entering into the correct pay period, but really they're entering them into the wrong pay period. To then approve hours, when you scroll down, or once you review all the elements of the timesheet, making sure they've reported enough hours. In this circumstance, we'll just assume everything was fine. So we'll look at all the different items there. Everything looks good. To approve the hours, you can do a line item approval and select items individually. There is also a select all, and it's perfectly fine to use select all here. And then you simply click approve. It stamps that you have approved it. So we know who entered hours when and also who approved the hours. And as you can see, the boxes now show that they are approved. If there are comments on the timesheet, you'll see a little blue lines inside of this. We should see that in just a second. To get to the other people in the list, you can use next employee or previous employee to get to the other people. So here we'll just take a look at the timesheet. We'll assume everything looks fine, and then we approve the hours. So here you can see there's a lot of lines to approve. So you can simply click select all after reviewing the timesheet and then click approve. In this one circumstance, we'll just pretend there was an issue with the holiday coding, and we'll approve everything except for the holiday coding. So now when we go back down here, the employee can see of all that their hours have been approved, but they also can see that this 1 hour is not approved. So this allows you to do a line item approval on entries for your employee. So if you didn't like a particular item, you could approve the other items and leave that one item not approved to have your employee change it. In this circumstance, we're just going to approve that item. Click OK. And again, you can use the previous or next employee button to get to other people in the list. I'm just going to copy Andrew's employee ID number. So we will make sure he reported enough hours, and we will just say everything looks good. Again, after you review the timesheet, select all and then click approve. We'll click OK. Again, your list might be a little large. So if that next or previous employee button doesn't work well for you, you can also click return to select employee, and this will just bring you back to that big list of employees. And then you can select someone else if needed. If during your approval you don't find someone you were expecting, there could be two reasons that their hours aren't showing up for you. One might be that the employee has not entered any hours, and the other one might be that the employee has entered hours but somebody else has approved it. This is how you would know. First, go to Manager Self-Service, Time Management, click on Report Time, and then Timesheet. And then find your employee that way. I'm just going to search on that employee's ID number. So we'll click on Andrew. So when I go to Andrew's timesheet here, I can see hours are entered, but you can also see that the hours are approved. So if this circumstance happens, give me a call or email Tracy, and there's a query that we can run to quickly get who approved the employee's hours. This would at least allow you to validate what the employee has entered. Also, if you go in and you see that no hours have been entered for that employee, you'll know obviously to then tell the employee to make sure that they get their hours entered. Again, they'll have 3 blank lines if no hours have been entered. Also, a quick other note, when you're approving hours, you will notice that the boxes are grayed out. You cannot change an employee's timesheet from the approval section. And this is to overemphasize the separation of who's entering and who should be approving the hours. So if you need to change an employee's timesheet, you have to go through the report time section through here, like I've showed you previously. All right, we're just going to skip over work groups. All right, and how to correct an error if you find one. So again, the easiest way is simply push back to your employee and tell them to change it. There is not a button inside of VTHR for that pushback. You just wouldn't approve the item, and you would just tell them email or phone or face-to-face to please change their timesheet. Worst case, if the employee is not available and the department business office is not available, you still have the ability to correct that error. And to do that, you start off right where we started. You go to the report time section, find the employee, submit the hours, document the change that you made on the timesheet with the comments, and then notify your employee that you changed your timesheet. So we'll hit on this a little bit later, but there is state policy about notifying employees if changes occur to their timesheet. So just please email your employees or tell them that you changed their hours. Again, all changes to a timesheet require approval. So please get the hours then approved, preferably by someone other than you. Again, we want a separation of who's entering and who's approving hours. All right, and this is how we tell employees if they call us to how to correct a timesheet. If it's still in that pay period, we tell the employee to make the change, document the change that they made with a comment, and then notify their approver if the hours were previously approved. That way, supervisors aren't caught high and dry thinking they were done with approvals when really an employee changed it after the fact. If it's after the pay period, normal employees, normal supervisors have Sunday and Monday following the pay period to edit the previous pay period. If during that time frame they need to change the timesheet, they'd follow the same pattern. Make the change, document the change that they made with a comment, and notify the employee or the approver that they made a change. Once it hits Tuesday, normal employees and normal supervisors are locked out from making changes. You cannot make changes beyond that to the previous timesheet. Department business offices have extra time on Tuesday to actually edit timesheets. So please reach out to your department's business office for assistance beyond that. Once it hits Wednesday, they are actually locked out themselves, and they act as the department business office acts as a liaison between the department and VTHR operations to get those hours changed. So if an employee calls the VTHR help desk and they ask us to change time from 2 months ago, we will always direct the employee to the department business office, specifically the department delegate. So for deadlines, we recommend employees enter their hours weekly. I myself enter them daily. Otherwise, all hours need to be entered the last shift that they work in a pay period. And departments might have their own guidelines around this as well. And you can hold your employees accountable for reporting on time, which we'll hit on at the end. For approvals, we recommend approving weekly. Otherwise, we do ask that all approvals be done by noon on Monday. And again, your department can come up with might have their own guidelines to better manage this process. You do not get locked out from approvals beyond that noon on Monday. You do get locked out from changing the previous pay period on Tuesday, but you do not get locked out from approvals. So a summary of expectations, we expect all supervisors who are approving hours to make sure they're reviewing the timesheets, including making sure the correct time reporting codes have been selected, that the overtime has been requested correctly, whether it should be cash or compensatory time, and that it was requested in the first place, and making sure that the correct funding sources have been selected. Obviously, timeliness and accuracy are important, so we want to make sure people are meeting deadlines. And then we will hit on state policy. This is going to take a second to open this. All right, State Policy 1110 talks about time entry and approval. The first part's more for employees. The second part's more for approvers. All approvers are able to adjust a timesheet and have the responsibility to notify interested parties, including the employee, of the modification. So simply put, if you changed an employee's timesheet, please tell them that you changed it. And finally, time entry and approval must be completed with the deadlines established by the Department of Human Resource. Failure to enter or approve time as required adversely impacts our payroll process and may result in corrective and or disciplinary actions. So let me show you where the established deadlines are on the Department of Human Resources website, and I will end up emailing this to you as well. So this deadline chart has some information you're familiar with, the pay period with associated pay day. We also have a column that specifically states when time entry is done by, and it is clearly indicated that it's by the end of the last shift that the employee works. So that's not the Monday following the pay period, it's the last shift that they work. Also, there is a column of when approvals need to be done. So that was state policy. And again, please notify your employees of changes. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the VTHR help desk. We have our phone number there. I myself am available most day, pretty much every day, from other than weekends, from 7:45 to 4:30. And you can always email me here. And we do encourage you to use your department business office as a resource as well. You're probably getting a lot of information from them as well. And yours is Tracy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to email Tracy to let her know that you've attended our training so she can submit paperwork to us to get you approval access. There is, and also I will send you a little follow-up package that has some other resources in it. The one other thing I'd like to show you is a tool called Query. So one question you might have is how much leave time do my employees have? And again, in the tool that I'm going to send you or the package, this will have this information. This tool might take just a second to run as it's fairly large. So this query will simply shows employees' leave balances. So example, Alex here, this is the leave time that Alex has right here. Please note, this is not a live leave balance. This should reflect exactly what's on the employee's HR advice. This is a perfect example of this as well. The first week inside of a new pay period, the HR advice is off because we literally have not processed payroll yet for the previous pay period. So this hasn't accounted for what the employee has used and earned for time for the pay period we just got out of, 10/30 through 11/12. The Monday following the pay period end, or when we get when your paychecks are available, you'll get the new HR advice that will reflect that information. So if you do use this query, and again, my package will have this information or how to use this query, just reference to your HR advice to know when these leave balances are good as of. So that's a very quick way that you can get your employees' leave balances to validate time off request. And since you have no other questions, I'm going to end the webinar now. Again, I'm going to send you a follow-up training package. Thanks.